not nearly as cool as like a big twist at like a well-known character would have added.
Oh, that sounds good. And Michael, before we get to your comment, we were able to get the Skype recording going. So if any of you are coming in late, we are going to be discussing the benefits of what's coming up at CES 2018, the best movies that we liked of 2018, as well as the top games. And we're currently discussing the alternate ending for The Predator that came out on the recent Blu-ray and DVD release from Fox. And you can catch us at Skewed and Reviewed, BJ's Geek Nation, and PenalCentral.com. And so, sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, Michael. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so to kind of go forward to what Justin's comments were, I just don't know how the Ripley ending would have fit in either. They wouldn't have known who she was anyways, other than being, the audience would have known. It would have been a great Easter egg for the audience, but they would have opened it up and said, okay, well, who's this person in here? And what is the connection? I understand that they wanted to kind of make it a twist. They wanted to, kind of tie the universes together, but it certainly wasn't the way to do it. And to me, it almost sounds like they hadn't planned on the Predator suit of armor being in the box. Sounds like that was the last thing they could do because the other options fell through. But again, I think that would have made more sense than the Ripley in the box scenario. So I agree. The time travel aspect of it, them opening the box, not knowing who she was, how she would even be a benefit because she wouldn't have had any experience with the Predators anyways. So again, I don't understand the connection there other than being an Easter egg for people to see at the end. I just didn't understand that point at all.
Yeah, it seems like they're I shouldn't say desperate, they were trying to really link the two franchises like Alien versus Predator. You know what? I think we're going to take a note from that and sidetrack a little bit before we get to the other stuff. Let's not forget what's supposed to happen on January 1st. This stuff all becomes Disney because that is the date that everyone's supposed to finalize it. We talked last week about the 6 images. I've got a video up about that, what they may mean in terms of potentially a TV series, potentially a new game. The William Gibson version of Alien 3 is being released by Dark Horse right now in segments. There's a novelization, I believe, that is going to be released coming up. So, it definitely seems like they're stirring the pot, and maybe they are saying, okay, Predator on its own, outside the first, doesn't bring in the box office that the others do. Covenant didn't make as much as they had hoped, but Prometheus did because people thought they were going to tie it in, and maybe they're trying to look for the all-inclusive formula. Speaking of which, guys, check these out. I just got these literally in the mail last night. This is from a company called Eagle Eyes. I hope you readers can see that. And they make sunglasses and all sorts of stuff. Now, we have some gaming glasses. We had one from Gunner Optics, which is in storage somewhere. Then we had one from another company that they did nice ones, but they unfortunately went out of business. They now do, get this, I think you've seen these, Michael. They're mints for gamers. They're like these energy mints that you suppostly pop for your marathon session.
I've seen those.
But this one here, this is the Optiflexes. They said this one will cut down on glare. So let's, oh, yeah, that does work. So I guess if I was doing a long session of typing or gaming, I definitely do that. It's comfy enough because you see it flexes like that. So the only trick is it's got like a $75 price tag. So I'm hoping it'll be durable enough, and I thank them for sending that to me. But go to eagleeyes.com, check that out. Okay, guys, let's swing over to something a little more positive now. Let's talk about video games. Top games of 2018. Let's see, how are we going to do this? I'll give one of mine, you give one of yours, and we'll go through there. I got Red Dead Redemption 2. You can say, oh, well, it takes a while to get going and I can't play it quickly and it's, 100 hours of time that I'm going to have to invest plus the online time. But I look at it kind of like Grand Theft Auto Online. This is the game that's going to keep evolving. You're not really going to finish it. You may complete one version of the campaign. It's going to keep evolving. It's going to keep changing. And potentially several, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still going to be playing it like they were playing. I mean, truthfully, the only thing that I think that can knock Red Dead Redemption players out of playing the game as either some kind of update that massively changes the game and makes it bad, or a new Grand Theft Auto. So we'll start with you, Michael. What's your take on that, please?
So one of my favorites of the year that I reviewed is actually Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I know it got a lot of negative press because the price dropped so quickly after the first release, but it really shouldn't detract people from the opportunity to play it. And I thought it was one of the better of the rebooted series. Certainly ranked up there to me along with the Uncharted series. So I definitely think it's worth checking out. And at the cheaper price, why not? It's a great game. It has at least 20 plus hours of story mode, plus there's additional modes to play through as well. So I think it's something definitely worth checking out, and it's still one of my top games of 2018.
Okay, Justin, what do you have?
I'm gonna go with it's very tough because this was a great year, and I do have to agree with you that Red Dead has been near the top, if not the top of my list of favorite games. I have not completed the story yet. It's such an enormous game, but once you get into it, it's absolutely incredible. But for a different choice, I'm gonna have to go with God of War. I think God of War was an excellent reboot of a franchise that has been, sort of dormant for several years. An absolutely great new take on it. It was not just kind of taking the same old and just adapting it to a new setting. Not only did they do a new setting, new characters that really kind of did a great job seeding a new sort of setting with new characters and new mysteries to sort of uncover over time. But they did such a great job revitalizing the gameplay to bring it more visceral, a little slower. The old God of War games were very much a hack and slash with a lot of verticality and things like that. But this game was very, very brutal, very close. And in terms of production value, one of the best games I've ever played. So I do have to say that is also near the top of my list. It's been a great year for Sony. I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And switching gears, of course, there's always, plenty of games, and there's always a huge debate with stuff like this as to what makes it, what doesn't. And obviously, we're going to hit on the big ones. And I wanted to highlight one that, sure, it has its issues. Graphically, it's not going to be anything cutting edge. But for me, I look at it from a pure enjoyment factor, and that was Earthfall. I'm, like many people, patiently hoping that we get to see another Left 4 Dead game sometime soon. With each year it goes by, I worry more and more about it. But, hey, if Steve Perry can release a hit album 24 years later, there's still hope for for Left 4 Dead 3 to come out. And what I liked about Earthfall was it was just nice to get back to the co-op gameplay style. I really enjoyed being able to get in there with a group of people. I remember, we would play the early access versions and get absolutely beaten down like crazy. But after several times of getting beaten down, we started to figure out, some of the Left 4 Dead tactics and methodology doesn't always work just because it's a similar game. And we went from there. And I was just really, really happy with what we ended up with for a final game. So, Michael, what's another one that you have?
So I'm going to go with a little bit smaller route, and one we talked about a long time ago, but another big release for PSVR, and that's actually Moss. We loaded some gameplay footage from it. I got some hands-on experience, a PlayStation experience, and honestly, for a VR experience where you're controlling a character, it's not a first-person experience. It's a fairly short story, but the graphically it's amazing. Some of the best animation I've seen, and probably one of the best PSVR games on the market still currently. It also was recently released for HTC Vive fairly recently. So it's one that I think people should, if you're interested in VR, it's been a pretty big year for VR in general. Moss is by far one of the best VR experiences I've had this year.
Okay, and Justin, what do you have?
I'm going to go with another huge PlayStation 4 exclusive and Spider-Man. This is another no-brainer. I think Insomniac's game, one of the best superhero video games ever made. Very much inspired by the Arkham series, the Batman Arkham series, in terms of its gameplay. But honestly, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I enjoyed Spider-Man more than the Arkham series. And don't get me wrong, absolutely love the Arkham series. But this new Spider-Man game in terms of production values. It's exactly like playing a movie. I think they nailed the movement down. The story is great, and the combat is very very deep, very fluid, and it's easy to pick up. But it's also remains challenging throughout the whole game. Altogether, just an absolutely incredible package, and I eagerly await what they do with that franchise going forward, because they did such a good job capturing what makes Spider-Man a great character and my favorite superhero. But they did a very unique take on it, and they sort of set up for future games. So I'm very eagerly awaiting what they do with that going forward.
Oh, perfect. And Michael, you had another one you wanted to add in as well, didn't you?
I've got a few actually, but
go ahead then.
Hitman 2, by far one of the I wouldn't say it's a surprise, because I think it was more of a surprise at how quickly it came out after the last one, which was an episodic take on the Hitman series. Once again, we're back to a full-on release, but just the sheer amount of ways you can go about taking out your target in Hitman 2 is just incredible. I got some hands-on E3, got to play through the first mission, but there are things like you can take out a mascot and dress up as a mascot to take out your target. There are ways you can take out the target without killing anybody else, or you can go on full guns a-blazing and take out various people to get to your target. The sheer scope of the game, the different locations, the different locale, the gameplay in general, just the sheer magnitude of the different ways you can replay it, play it over and over again, the same mission, trying different tactics. By far one of the most interesting and one that I sunk a lot of time into for the year is Hitman 2. So again, one of my top picks for 2018, absolutely.
Well, I did want to mention, honorable mention would be Call of Duty Black Ops 4. I'm still disappointed that there is not a solo campaign in the game, because to me that is a big part of it. But I still say aspects of the multiplayer were too much like DLC for Black Ops 3 at times. But I have really enjoyed the zombie mode. I'm not a fan of the blackout mode per se, the one and done. I tried to play the other day, and it just turned me off instantly. I parachuted right in, I kid you not, right into the map, landed, took one step, and was shot dead. And it's like, some guy power rushed down to the ground, got a gun, sat there camping, and was picking off people right as they land. It's like, in a one and done game, how is that motivating me to come back? Because I have no idea. You pick a spot on the map, it's all just random luck. And it's like, you got to have a halo rule of some kind where they land and you get a few seconds to get yourself to cover before you're fair game. But the zombie modes have actually done it. The recent one that they had with the DLC, where they had Kiefer Sutherland and other actors, and you're running around a mansion dealing with werewolves, and you have to make silver bullets, because no matter what gun you have, it doesn't matter if you don't have the silver bullets. And, that was a lot of fun. So that from a strictly enjoyment aspect, I'm going to put that there. Another honorable mention, I know it's got a ton of bugs, I know it's got a ton of issues, but I was looking at the games that I've actually logged a lot of hours in, and it was Fallout 76. There's just, up until recently, I've hit the wall on things I can't really accomplish on my own, but Justin and I have played a few. We got some people who want to play. Michael's getting ready to get in there a lot more. I'm really eager to see what the four of us could do. I know Justin Smid said he wanted to play, so I think we got our 4-person fire team. We just have to decide who's going to be the bait person to go out front. But, not judging it on what we were expecting, not counting off on the flaws, from the sheer fact that I'm at least getting several hours of enjoyment out of it, that's definitely one. Justin, do you have any others that you wanted to add into the mix?
I suppose if I had to round it out, just another honorable mention, I'll stray away from PlayStation exclusives, and I'll go with Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. I've been spending a lot of time with that. Got it early in December, but that one's hooked me quite a bit. It's definitely full. If you're a fan of that franchise, it's definitely full of content and a very polished experience.
Okay. And Michael, did you have any others that you wanted to toss into the mix?
Yeah, actually 2 points. So I did log a bit of time with Fallout 76 over the holiday, and I agree with you. I actually am playing it quite a lot. To me, it's like Fallout 4 with extended locations, but I tend to play Fallout games by myself anyways. The people I've ran into have been friendly for the most part. They've given me stuff, so
Yeah.
I don't really know where a lot of the. I know there's a lot of bugs, but when hasn't there been a lot of bugs in Fallout games or in Skyrim, or any of the other Elder Scrolls games? So I'm hoping as some of that polish starts to flow, people will start to actually take their time and really enjoy it. But one that I wanted to add on to that we spent quite a bit of time on is Strange Brigade. I
Oh
know
yeah.
it didn't get a lot of attention, I think, from a lot of the media outlets. I know, Gareth, you played a lot of it. I've played quite a bit of it myself. Been a lot of fun, and Rebellion and that whole team has been really great, not only with the amount of time they spent with us at E3, but just with updates and continually adding to the game as a co-op experience, and episodic to a sense where it feels like you're kind of watching an old-timer TV show or listening to an old radio show. The game's really polished. It's a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed my time with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just actually posted a video of that this morning. I did the second Afterlife DLC one, which was actually, normally I can get through those without dying. This one was a pain because it put 4 of those giant bull monsters on you in a close environment. And I was playing the new guy, the Japanese character, and it took me about 3-4 tries, but I got it. I knocked through that, so that was a lot of fun. Switching gears, let's look at movies now. For our list, we are not looking at the art house films or the ones that are going to be all the darlings of the award seasons per se. We are looking at the mainstream popcorn movies, the ones for the average everyday fan, mass market films, shall we say. And I'm going to start off with A Quiet Place. Now, this was one that came in without a ton of expectations and actually did very well. They have a sequel brewing, but Emily Blunt and John Krasinski working from a script that John Krasinski wrote, and his direction was fantastic. They did a really good job with a modern take on a horror film that we've not seen, with a twist in this regard. And the great thing about it is that not only was it done with a modest budget, it had you on the edge of your seat. My wife is not a fan of horror films in any way, shape, or form, but she was always has been a fan of John Krasinski ever since The Office. And I remember she was on the edge of her seat, alert, and just hooked on every second in the film. So looking forward to seeing what they do next. And that was my first one. Okay, Michael, actually, Justin, you're up. What do you have?
I'm going to go with a no-brainer. This is a very obvious pick, but Avengers Infinity War, what probably the biggest movie of the year, and it absolutely lived up to expectations, which for a lot of people is actually surprising, just because the bar has been set so high. They had been building to this movie for over 10 years now, kind of seeding the entire MCU with the events that lead up to this one. And the Russo brothers absolutely nailed it. It was such an incredible movie, not only just because there's so many characters that they had to tackle and so many characters they had to juggle, and each one felt like they got their due, that each one felt like they had their own story arc, but they also had an incredibly memorable villain who, Thanos definitely lived up to the absolute kind of threat that they had been building up all these years. And really, the movie is very dark. That was a very bold movie, and it really took the MCU into directions that were unexpected. That's one thing that this movie, when it ended, all the people I saw it with, myself included, we all sort of had the same reaction of we have absolutely no idea where this is going to go from here, but we really want to find out. And that's for all of the movies that this cinematic universe has had, and I've loved every single one of them, but I've never been so eager and so, I guess, unknown of like what is going to happen next. Where are they going to take this story, and how are they going to conclude this than I am now. And so that would be probably my top pick as far as like most entertaining, most consequential movies of this year. And I'm absolutely looking forward to the next one.
Okay, and Michael, which one do you have?
I think one that kind of surprised myself, definitely surprised my wife, and I think surprised a ton of people. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Not a movie that was really advertised or hyped as much as we would have expected. We saw a really brief glimpse of it at CinemaCon earlier in the year, but wow, what talk about a movie that brings in heart and character, and actually it comes off as a big budget AAA film in a cartoon form. I mean, it's dark. It's not necessarily for the little kids, but you know, uh, teenagers and older would definitely enjoy it. Really tells an amazing story. Brings a lot of the Spider-Man characters from across the Spider-Verse together. It's violent, but it's satisfying. It's dark, but it's entertaining. I think it came as a huge surprise to a lot of folks, and one I really, really enjoyed for 2018.
Yeah, that definitely is a very good one to make sure it's included. I'm going to change it up a bit, and I'm going to put Bohemian Rhapsody on the list, simply from the standpoint, I know people will say, well, it took a lot of liberties with the history. There's a lot of inaccuracies in the film that were changed for dramatic purposes between what they portrayed in the film and what actually happened. You know, there were several things like Queen never broke up. This whole thing about Live Aid being a reunion for them was nonsense. They were one of the first billed bands when the initial release went out. They had just come off their world tour a few months ago, but I get it. But from a standpoint of not only is the music proving to everyone just how timeless those songs are, Rami Malek's performance is fantastic. It's definitely Oscar worthy. And what got me was that when I saw the film, when they got to the Live Aid scenes, I could look around the theater and you could see people were visibly moved by it. There were people crying, there were people singing along, and it to me is a very fitting legacy to Freddie Mercury in that this one, yes, he was eccentric, but just one of the greatest rock frontmen, songwriters, performers that we have ever seen. Even today, there is nobody like him. And I think the film did a great job of capturing him, who he was on stage, as well as giving us a tiny bit of a look at what he was off stage. And that, above all, despite what people may say about him, he was a very caring and decent individual who cared about his family, cared about his friends, cared about his bandmates. And the fact that they still think so highly of him so many years after he's gone, I think speaks very well of him. And I think the movie did a fantastic job of capturing that. So, Justin, do you have another one for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Halloween. This is a sort of a reboot of the franchise. It's actually kind of set as a direct sequel to the first film, ignoring all the other ones after it, taking place some 40 years later. If nothing else, this film is absolutely incredible for as much as it's able to do with as little budget as it had. This movie had a $10 to $15 million budget, which is just, even for horror movie standards, is very, very low. But it used a lot of very classic techniques in order to be effective as a horror movie. A very visceral movie and honestly a very engaging story that took a lot of the themes and a lot of the characters in new ways that I've absolutely one of the movies that I was willing to see multiple times in theaters.
Oh, very good. And Michael, you have one more, I believe, to take us out on this topic.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Bumblebee, actually. One of that is a huge surprise because the Transformer movies have been terrible, to say the least. And this one came as a shock to me. I'm not even a huge Bumblebee character fan. So I wasn't going in with a lot of expectations and a lot of hope for this movie. And I came out really amazed. The use of the G1 characters within the game itself, within the movie itself, just spoke volumes that they actually listened to the fans. And this was actually a fan film. It's for those who are following the comics, followed the cartoon, followed the movies. And yet, if you hadn't seen any of those, and this was your first Transformers movie, it's something you can enjoy. So I was really shocked and amazed that we'd actually see a quality Transformer film. It came at the end of the year, released with Aquaman, so there hasn't been as much focus on it, I think, as it should be. But was really surprised and really impressed with how it turned out.
Now, switching gears, we have the Consumer Electronics Show. Now, Michael, you are going to be on the way to Vegas next week because you and Mark are doing the advanced team meetings and such for us. Genevieve and I are going to be following a few days later to wrap it up and to do the Thursday and Friday stuff. And I thought we'd just do a really quick rundown of some of the things that we're looking forward to. Now, you have far more meetings than me because you're hitting up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday worth of stuff, where I'm doing mainly Thursday and Friday. And some of the, you have more scheduled. I have a lot more of the drop-in stuff around some of the bigger ones. But like, looking forward to seeing Razer. We're going to kick off my coverage personally with them Thursday morning. We're going to go by Samsung, check out all the latest appliances and gadgets. Polaroid, a lot of talk about the mobile printers, so we're really curious to see how that plays out. We're going to look into some new massage chairs as well as some technology with that. But what I also am curious about is we're going to see things like some new stuff from Creative. We're going to see some of the new stuff from Panasonic, RCA, going to drop in and have a look at Clear. But then there's a ton of video game and hardware companies that we're interested in. And this is in between all of our other drop-ins, places like Audio Technica and who do the microphones that using currently. They do all sorts of headphones. And, there's going to be, it's so vast. It's everything from cars to home to security cameras to modems to links. I was looking over Mark's meeting list, and it's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. It's a good thing you live in Vegas. So what are some of the highlights that you have, Michael?
Yeah, so obviously some of the hardware manufacturers that I'm going to go see, EVGA, Gigabyte, Kotak, those are all the video card manufacturers that we typically see, the OEMs for the NVIDIA line. HP was there last year. I hope to check in with them as well. I'm a big water cooling guy, so AlphaCool is one of the ones that I spent a lot of time with last year. Radiators, pumps, that kind of thing. Obviously, the D-Link, seeing some of their new router type stuff. Western Digital is going to have a huge showing with their hard drive lineup. I see some of the smaller companies. GameSir is a company that I spent a lot of time with last year. We'll be spending some time with this year. They do controllers for mobile gaming, so you can plug your Apple or your iPhone or your Samsung into the controller, and it actually provides a Bluetooth-like controller for your gaming experience. Makes it a little bit more of a better experience than using the touchscreen. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. Azultech is another company that does gaming PC type stuff. And then of course the big folks like Samsung, LG, Sony, a lot of those huge ones where we see, TVs, 4K, 8K is now the big thing that they're going to be showing off, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I've got a huge list of folks I'll be interviewing with one-on-one, but also obviously seeing the showroom floor and some of the big conventions as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned EVGA. We're hoping to get a look at the GTX 2070 XC Ultra. I'm really curious to see what that much power can do with some of these games. I always think back to the Future when Marty goes into Doc's lab at the beginning and has that massive speaker on the wall and he just cranks everything up. And I've often thought, boy, isn't that fun to be able to take like the most cutting edge game on the market, set everything to ultra and just laugh. Just go on like, I dare you, So, and Justin, what do you have on your list of things that you're kind of curious about seeing from CES in terms of technology? Is there something that you hope to be seeing coming that you are curious about? I mean, a lot of people say, is it going to be the 8K TV? Is it going to be streaming services? Is it going to be, new mobile things, tablets, what is going to be the new tech. I think, Michael, you'd agree last year was very heavy on drones. They were all over the place last year, as they were the year before, but they definitely multiplied last year. And you have retailers from all over the world coming and provide manufacturers, including some that don't even sell in America. They come here to meet with buyers from their region. So what do you think, Justin? What's the big thing on your list?
So I'm going to go with a couple things. I'm always kind of interested in seeing where video card technologies go, between NVIDIA and AMD. The last several years they've done a pretty good job and with a lot of their new cards. So I'm always kind of interested in seeing where they go, what kind of new developments they can come up with. The other one is tablet technology. So we're getting better and better at making our technology smaller. So our processors are getting smaller, and we're able to make some pretty powerful technology that can be packed in such a small package. So I'm curious to see this year if we can get some tablet technology that rivals that of what we can get in a personal computer.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on, and we're going to have more on this stuff next week. Well, until that time, guys, it is almost New Year's. So until then, folks, have a very safe and happy New Year, and we will see you all next week. Until then, take care.